Joining forces with the Caledonian coalition and the rebel Roman general Aelius Maximus, Rex and his company finally took their place on the world stage as a force to be reckoned with, winning the support of Roman Gallia and defeating a Roman army in Britannia. The strife of the imperial house was only just beginning, however. Maximus threw a scroll down on the table in the middle of Rex's victory feast in his Eagle Fort. "Looks like Commodus isn't going to get away with this after all. Hope you're ready to march on Rome," he said. Rex scanned the message silently. "What's it say?" Pullo demanded. "It says that all of these generals listed here are going to support Maximus's claim. These towns they talk about are east of Italia." "Exactly," Maximus said, taking the scroll back to give it yet another look over himself, pulling a dirty smirk. Then he looked back down at Pullo. "You sit beside General Rex, but you can't read?" Pullo had no wit to respond with, so Rex helped him out. "He is responsible for running my estates. I can't live without him, General, especially with an army to fund. Anyway, you should recognize him." "Should I?" 13th Legion, Pullo said, nodding towards his arm where indeed there was a mark designating him as a legionary of that outfit. "The 13th Legion doesn't exist anymore," Maximus said, suddenly losing his cheer. "It was wiped out to the last man. If you still live, then you are a deserter. Don't pretend you have some status, soldier." "Sorry to interrupt, but there is one other man of that legion here," Agasicles said from across the table. "You incriminate yourself with those words, General." Maximus drew breath as if to speak, but no words came. He made a show of stowing the scroll away in a pouch. He turned as if to leave, but suddenly his speech was restored. "I've done much for your petty cause already, and you see fit to mock me and the lives of loyal Romans. When justice is had in Rome, you will all go quite wanting, I assure you. I will inspect the troops this evening, so have them assemble. We must be ready to strike south. People get in life what they deserve, so try to summon some dignity while you're in my employ, all right?" With this, he stormed off. "Are we in his employ?" Aethna asked. All looked to Rex, who was taken aback by the sincerity of the question. "No, he's our Trojan horse, if you like." Agasicles chuckled at this, but the rest let the mysterious historical reference pass by without a fight. "So, Pullo, you were in his army? Didn't know that," said Ebtrith. "Yeah, years ago now. We fought in Germany for ages." "You liked him at all?" "Until he started losing. Didn't stop after he started, and quite a few of us decided to pack it in, especially after the word got out that the Emperor was giving him the cold shoulder." "And then you wandered the land, becoming the foremost drunk in Europe, as I understand it?" Agasicles sneered. "Yep. Good money in it, mate," Pullo retorted, raising his cup. There was no argument to be had with that. Hello there, welcome back to Rex Romanum. Right now I'm down in good old Massilia, selling that good old salt and making an outrageous profit. We can't even sell all the salt I'm carrying right now because they don't have the money to pay for it. Luckily there's the good old fact that you can force other merchants to buy it, so we'll get the weapons guy to buy all of our salt, and now we've made a lot of money visiting Massilia here. The reason I came down here was actually to go east into Italy. We want to capitalize on our recent victory and do a bit of scouting, see what sort of things we see in the enemy's core territory. As for what we do see, it's not very much. There's a deserter band there with some tempting prisoners, but no armies come to meet us, and indeed the area appears to have been attacked already. It must have been the case that Roman Gallia and Roman Illyricum have already raided northern Italy and taken everything out. I did find some way I could contribute though. There was a fort just to the north of the Alps, so I doubled back on myself to go and investigate, and as I sort of suspected, it was only guarded by a few men. It's obviously changed hands recently, so there's no garrison, meaning we can show up and gain ourselves some glory by claiming a fort. There's this whole complex siege system in this mod that I won't get into now because I'm not really going to do anything. I'm just going to stand here and make some ladders. And you can see the army of Roman Gallia is actually defending us as we do this, driving away the Roman Empire's forces. It seems Maximus is being true to his word. Very handy. All we need to do then is wait for ages for the siege to conclude and for our equipment to be ready. During the siege there's this seemingly random event. Looks like our men clashed with the enemy while trying to get water or something, and we killed pretty much the entire garrison of the fort according to those casualties in the fight, but the siege does continue after that. And in fact, the enemy apparently sally out to try and burn down our siege equipment, and neither side loses any men. I suspect at this point the enemy is actually all dead and it's just still generating these events for me. So I ask our men to protect the siege equipment. It says they've still set fire to something, but it also ends the siege and we win. So there we go, we have successfully captured a fort, we've done something. We can ask for it to be given to us and we'll see if we get any feedback from that. What I want to do now is just sit in the fort to deal with the inevitable counterattack. In fact, there it is right now. The Roman Empire already had forces in the area, and because Roman Gallia leave after the fort falls, it's going to be down to just our army to hold it against the enemy counterattack. I was ready for this. We've got 200 men against the enemy's 300, but I figured having our fortifications will multiply our force and allow us to hold our ground. It wasn't that easy, however, thanks to some glitches. It looks like no map has been assigned to this location, a classic mistake in Mount & Blade mods. So both armies just spawn on top of each other. The fight's a huge mess right from the beginning, and while contemplating the mess, Rex is hit by an arrow, so not going very well. We even take a debuff because of this wound, especially nasty considering I really didn't expect such a difficult fight to be on our hands. Now we are going to gradually lose this battle. The enemy have numbers on their side, especially when it comes to heavy infantry, since a lot of our men are cavalry or archers, and you can see my response to this perilous situation. I was so outraged. I thought, well, I didn't get my defense, I didn't get my advantage, so I'm just going to refuse to lose. We would lose our whole army and have to start again, and we'd be a Roman prisoner for a while if this battle went through. So I just used some cheats to make sure that we won, although it wasn't without losses. We still lost 60 men in the brawl before I did that, so we have been punished there. We do keep the fort, that's something, although we'll see it's not all that much. We also captured one of the enemy commanders and freed some guy from Roman Gallia, I presume, who was their captive, so get some relations from that. So yes, we keep the fort after this battle, but because we now know that there's no actual fort here, it's just a cliffside, there's no strategic advantage in staying here. My plan has failed. I wanted a base near Italy that we could act from, but we can't use this place because if it's attacked by anything, we'll just be in huge trouble, and there really aren't any other viable contenders. One option is to rebuild the Eagle Fort in enemy territory, but for now I'm just going to abandon this position. The enemy will be able to take it back, and we'll go back to Britannia to consult with our lords and the other lieges of Britannia to come up with a plan. Rex's army returned to Britannia to much cheer, marching Roman captives and plunder north through Londinium and up past the ruins of the old border wall. The uneasy alliance of Romano-Briton and Pict could jointly celebrate the humiliation of the distant imperial authority, hailing both Rex and Maximus as great men of the age. Maximus knew as much already, but for Rex it was an honour beyond the adulation of tournament goers. During his victory tour, Rex stopped at Isca Celerum in southern Wales, an old Roman military base now painted and perfumed according to the whims of the northerners. There he feasted long into the night with his old patron, Lord Vist of the Eastern Cliffs. "So, when are you going to strike?" he was eagerly asking. "Whenever I can, but I don't know what will happen if I approach Rome with an army. The Empire's still just one city and its territories. They won't back down if we attack their heart." Yes. This is what a life of wealth and luxury does to you, boy," Vist said, fondling the golden chalice from which he drank. "What do you mean by that, Lord?" I mean, I remember you 2 winters ago. I remember a lean boy with fire in his eyes and revenge in his heart, who would charge into battle knowing not the danger, and emerge as a champion. Now your greatness has put even Roman generals on their knees before you, and you can sup and sip as you please. Such pursuits douse one's fire, and I speak for all of us." "I'm not cautious so I can sleep in a comfortable bed," Rex replied. "I've been studying war and marching, all the Roman and Greek manuals, and I know that things can fall apart in an instant, no matter your power." "You'd better believe it. You need that to happen to poor Aurelius if you're going to see Regni again." "I'll make it happen." "Oh, is that so? Do I smell burning embers within you?" "It's a flame that burns like the sun in the face of my enemies," Rex boasted. A cheer went up and vessels were emptied. "Listen," Vist said as the air cleared, leaning closer to Rex. "I don't think the leaders really care about Italia. No one wants to go that far for uncertain rewards, so you must go yourself at first and learn all you can. Prove that there are riches, and prove that they can be taken. Come back with that, and perhaps I can convince the coalition to march on Rome. You won't need that turncoat Roman and his scheming Gallic refuse. Me and you, we'll punish those who wronged your family, and make things right." I take our forces for a second attack on Italy, picking up some more volunteers here from this village along the way, because we'll need all the men we can get if we face a powerful enemy force. We go even deeper this time, going all the way to Rome. My goal was to investigate the garrison at Rome and see just what we have to deal with if we want to actually attack it. There is a nearby Roman army hanging around, so I'll quickly upgrade my troops here in case we have to face them. Luckily they're going off in the other direction, so we can sneak over and get close enough to Rome to see what it has. It's got 450 troops at the moment. A pretty difficult force to take down, but actually a little bit weaker than I expected. I thought it'd be something like 500 from my other experiences with cities or powerful cities in Mountain Blade. But anyway, yes, we'll need to get our allies to help us to have any chance of winning a battle there. One thing we can do though is take on the nearby Roman army. We only have about the same numbers as them, and the enemy claims that we're outmatched and even offers us the chance to surrender, and we're saying no, we're going for this battle because I was pretty confident after our recent win against the Romans in Britannia. So we form up to fight, with our infantry going out in a square formation to match the enemy's square, while I direct my cavalry to form up behind the enemy army. I'm sitting here with the archers, just firing away and broadly not doing anything because we're shooting into the enemy's shield wall, but at least it does reduce the health on their shields, so it makes our infantry's job a bit easier. And you can see the angles we've set up here. Our archers are shooting into the flank of the enemy formation, so once they're distracted by that melee, that's going to start going a bit better. Our cavalry first attack the small group of enemy archers at the back. I come over here to accelerate this process since we really need them to focus on the enemy infantry so we can turn this fight. Now I charge myself in to get things going, and the enemy break up a little bit on the left side of their square, and then my arrows coming in will start hitting them as they flee, plus my cavalry are coming in at this time, and very suddenly the enemy formation is just obliterated, and this is going to turn into a rout. I see a chance in the dust there to take down the enemy commander. It is done. A few men are distracted by me doing that, and then they are cut down by cav. The rest are trying to escape, and they're not going to make it. They're all heavy infantry, they've got no cav left, they're going to be annihilated as they rout. The battle ends in a victory, so while the enemy considered themselves to have an advantage, we've proven otherwise. We lost 11 men to take down about 150 enemy troops, an excellent trade. The enemy have been humiliated. Unfortunately, we did not capture the enemy officer, so we won't make extra profits off this, but the general drops from the army will give us plenty of loot to sell, and we captured loads of their soldiers, who we can also ransom back when we get to Massilia. So not wanting to push my luck, I'm going to go back right now. I did spot one other army, but it was too powerful to face, so we'll leave them be and leave Italia for now. After leaving all the captives in Massilia and then going to Andematinum to pick up some salt, of course, I decided to head back to Britannia. We need to go back to Benatia right now to pick up all the money that the land we've bought has been generating. On the way, I realised something that I should have realised earlier. All those sea raiders who gave us so much trouble earlier in the game are still here, and they've got loads of captives just like they had before, so this is a great way for us to easily power up our party. We can just take down these now much smaller than us sea raider groups, take all their captives and build ourselves quick, powerful forces. This battle though didn't go ideally. We're fighting in woods and in mist, and the enemy sort of took me by surprise. They suddenly ran up the hill towards my archers while I was still setting up. My cavalry and infantry are too far behind. I lost my horse, and in the ensuing melee our archers are having to fight right at the very front. Not very nice. However, we're still sort of winning. The enemy just aren't charging very effectively. They are getting cut down by our men using their swords at close range, and with the arrival of my infantry and cavalry, the battle is already won. We lost one guy in that fight and captured a whole load of slaves from the enemy who we can now add to our force. They're not all that good. The best component was all of those caravan guards, so we'll power up our cavalry right there. And we can do that again. We can search for more parties later to grab some more heavy infantry if we can. For now, I continued heading north. On the way, I heard that the Caledonian coalition is meeting at Tremontium, which I happen to be near, so I thought I'd go talk to the lords and try to advance my standing in the faction so that we can at some point get them to actually help us with the attack on Rome and make it possible. The now familiar cheers announced Rex's arrival to the feast. His companions found what places they could, while he sat down in his designated spot beside Lord Vist, the host, and Chief Corbett, leader of the whole coalition. Both nobles were red-faced already, and seemed overjoyed to meet the hero of the hour.
"Is what Vist tells me true?" Corbett said. "Did you march to Italy and defeat a Roman army before the walls of their precious city?"
Rex could not help but feel an energizing sense of pride as he reported the whole affair. Corbett clapped wildly at each turn, growling like an animal when Rex spoke of riding freely amongst fleeing Roman soldiers. Maximus, who had been standing by the door with his guards, decided against joining the feast upon spying this rabid anti-Roman zeitgeist. Egged on by a nodding Vist, Rex asked after Corbett's own ambitions for Italia.
Oh my boy, you're not going to expect such heroics of everyone, are you?" was his reply.
He emptied his mouth of food and went on.
"We're on bad terms with the Emperor because he will not recognize our claim to the lands in Britannia we conquered. The Gallic legions, being cowards, are far more understanding. Anyway, I can't ask my boys to go with you all that way."
"But, my lord, the wealth in plunder would more than cover the cost," Rex said. Corbett waved this away.
"Wealth in plunder is available without crossing a sea. We'll sooner convince the men to kick out their strange bedfellows than pass sea and mountain for the same reward."
"My lord, what of the glory?" Vist added. "What a legend we would write if we killed the Roman Emperor! Britannia would be ours forever with such an act!" A toast was had, but an ever-smiling Corbett ended up shaking his head.
"Again, how can I convince the boys of that?"
"I'll show them the loot from Italy. It will inspire a greed for glory in all the men," Rex suggested. While Corbett was happy with the idea, in truth no loot remained unsold, so more would have to be sourced. Rex began speaking of another expedition to Italy, this time with some of the men from Lord Fur's retinue coming along to act as witnesses. Fur was the coalition's leading military mind, for what that was worth, so convincing him to join a southern campaign was the key to raising an army that would greatly exceed the urban cohorts of Rome. As ever, Rex was the outsider with everything to prove, and if he was right, plenty in store to be gained. Time for another little trip down to Italia. This time we're specifically looking to capture a Roman officer to give to our lord in order to win his favour. As I arrive, I see that the Roman Gallian assault is still going strong. They've got troops all over the place and they're raiding northern Italy. I get down to Rome and I see the Emperor himself actually walking about, with an army almost as big as the one defending Rome itself, so that's going to be a dangerous foe we need to escape for now. I start chasing after a small group of Romans that had 20-something guys among them, thinking we can easily capture this guy, but I lost track of him in the night and ended up facing a bigger force with 120-something men, still one we can take down with our nearly 200 troops, so I went in for the battle. We're going to be doing the same sort of strategy we've seen before, where we just send in the infantry in a big square to get the enemy's attention. Then we ride in with all of the cavalry to try and make a decisive attack against the enemy's tight formation. Our archers are out of position, they're barely doing anything in this battle, and I didn't think to move them. Instead, I'm trying to tell what's going on here. The problem we're having is that as more and more of my own army become Roman troops, both sides kind of look the same, so I'm left slashing wildly about the place, not achieving all that much. I eventually get too stuck into the mix, as you can see here. My horse is being slashed at from down below, and I can't really tell which of the guys down there are enemies, so I'm not even attacking back. I end up getting knocked down. However, the fight is already won at this stage, really. There are only a few enemies left, and our infantry and cavalry combined push the enemy off the field to gain us a victory. Looks like I stole someone's horse along the way. We lost 14 men to defeat well over 100, so not that bad a battle, although it certainly could have gone a little bit better in many different ways. But most importantly, we did capture an officer, so we've already achieved our objective. Now we'll take on some regular captives to ransom back and start moving home towards Britannia. On the way I came across some deserters. That's a nice easy target, and they've got a load of prisoners, so I thought I'll top up my numbers and restore the losses of the campaign by taking down these deserters and stealing the captives. It was a nice, no pressure battle, so I can take the chance to train my archery. Still do need quite a lot more archery proficiency to really be able to engage at medium range, so that's an ongoing project. And here we are rescuing the slaves from their party, including a whole load of caravan guard, which is good because caravan guard were the majority of the men I lost in that previous battle. I made it back to Londinium and celebrated our campaign's victory by buying myself a new wine press to get some more cash. Then we get news that my village is under attack. I'm not going to run there right away, I'm going to be a bit cheeky and try to complete this quest with Corbett first. Since he happens to be right here, I can get this Roman officer off my hands. So there we go, we hand him over, and that's going to improve our relation with our lord, and it gives us some money, so we don't lose out too much. We would have only made a little bit more than that if we'd sold the officer back to Rome ourselves. Then we do run back to Moradunum and arrive before the raid is complete, so the place won't be destroyed. Excellent news. Now time to just pursue the enemy force in the area, which was on the run. We catch up to Lucius Verus and his 160 or so men. We had this strange option to say, "I heard that you know Pitchland." Apparently he has some secret that he doesn't want to tell us about right now. There was another option here to say that his face looks familiar, and he tells us that he is the Emperor's brother. So this guy is a celeb in the Roman world, a worthy foe indeed for Rex. We certainly need to not treat him too lightly here. And indeed, his army does prove to be quite strong. We start off doing the usual strategy, getting our infantry ready to distract the enemy for the cav attack, but the enemy's cav went to attack mine off to the right of the screen there, so the fight started earlier than I expected. As for Verus, there he goes. He didn't see Rex just riding up to him by the looks of things, so immediately the enemy are denied their commander. My cav start making their attack early because I wanted to try and kill these archers. However, the cav have split into two groups, and some of them are already attacking the infantry and are just getting killed. My infantry are now rushing in to provide the supporting flank attack so we can surround them. My cavalry have already taken a beating, so I order them to fall back, but not very many of them actually make it because it's so hard to disengage when you're on horseback. Now the infantry have to win the fight for us really, since our cavalry won't be doing too much work. And as it happens, this doesn't go all that well. It looked like to me things were going well, looked like maybe the enemy were routing, but actually it's probably our troops that are routing here. It's kind of hard to tell what's going on, just because so many of our men were Romans themselves. So while I thought this general blob was mostly my troops killing just a few enemies, it's the other way around. This is mostly enemies, and I've just ridden out into the center of it, and I suddenly realize, wait a minute, these guys are all looking at me, they're hostile to me, and there we go. Finally things become clear as I ride away and the enemy reform. We've actually lost pretty much all of our infantry and all of our cav at this point. It's just the archers left in a strong position, and they need to run away, otherwise the enemy infantry will rush them. At least the enemy are keeping their formation. That means they can't catch up to my archers because they're moving slowly. And now it comes down to a game of distraction. Either the enemy are distracted looking at me and the archers can hit them, or they're distracted looking at the archers and I can hit them. Either way, we gradually cut the remaining enemies down, plus their morale starts to break and we see troops running away, making things extra easy. And as things come to a close, I just order everyone to get in there and attack the last few enemies. Victory will now be ours, but it was a lot harder than I expected. It came at quite the cost. I think we lost about 40 men in total, and a lot more than that were wounded, so we'll have to rest up for a bit. We're starting to run really low on the elite Parthian troops now in particular. However, we did capture the enemy commander as well as wiping out his army, and since this guy is such a big shot, that's probably going to be a nice big deal. We'll have a little chat with Varus at the start of the next episode. If any underestimated Rex, they were holding their tongues now. After a series of widely celebrated victories, he had become not just another noble, but a famous military leader who struck fear into the hearts of the experienced veteran campaigners he was set against. The Caledonians couldn't afford to lose him, and the Romans couldn't afford to have him serve the barbarians much longer. Finally, the language of military victory had given Rex a say in his own fate. That is all for now. Thank you very much for watching, and a very special thanks to all of the OfficiallyDevin patrons. We'll be doing a bit more campaigning over winter, and we'll start trying to convince the Caledonians to actually let Rex be the one in charge in the next part of Rex Romanum.